And perfect. All right. It is 7 o'clock. So, Alana, let's get it recorded and going.
Yeah, you're good.
All right. Welcome to the Village of New Paltz Planning Board regular meeting of Tuesday, April 6, 2021. We're live streamed, recorded remotely at 7 p.m. We have an agenda here that I'm going to read off, and the meeting's being held by Zoom and live stream on YouTube. Interested parties may attend the meeting by clicking a link that Alana has provided. If you do not have that link, reach out to her and we can certainly get you that link. So tonight we have on our business agenda, administrative business. We've got approval of the March 16, 2021 minutes. We're going to have village board, UCPB and EPB updates, public comments, which we will take at that point, and we will also be aware of any public comments that do come in through YouTube or through communication to Alana, and we will certainly attend to those as the night goes on. Then we have an application review, a site plan and special use permit, PB 2101 107 Main Street. Ed Carroll's the applicant, zoning district B2. The SBL is 86.34-6-14. We also have a subdivision, PB 2008 64 Plains Road, returning once again. The applicant is Discovery Institute. The zoning district is R2. SBL is 86.41-1-16.110. So there we go. So with that in mind, we'll start with the approval of the March 16, 2021 minutes. Anybody have anything that we think we need to redo or that we need to work on with that? Anybody get a chance to look at those minutes?
Hey, John.
Yes, Dennis.
I think Alana did a terrific job, and I printed out the minutes, and I'm going to put it in the file with the New Paltz apartment file, because it really gives a good summation of what Mike Moriello and the others did. So, yeah, I thank Alana. As I say, I think be a good thing for people to print out and keep, because it is a good summary.
That is an excellent point, and because there was so much in there, it would be difficult for me to really go through and say this needs to be corrected or not, just because there's a kind of density of information, and I think that's a good point. So if you if everyone would take that as a note to refer back to that and save it in a file so that you can look at it. Anybody else have any points they want to mention about the minutes? Corrections, comments? No? Okay. All right. So I'd like to get a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting.
So motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. So we have approved the March 16th, 2021 minutes. Next, we're going to move on to the village board, EPB and EPB. Do we have anyone here? Let's see, Wilmer.
John and Bill are both absent.
Okay. All right. Well, with that in mind, if they return, we'll get those updates. But at this point, we're going to move on to public comments. Alana, do you have any public comments that are on YouTube right now?
Nothing right now, and I haven't received anything in writing.
Okay. Very good. We'll hold those public comments open just in case there is a public comment that comes in related to the business that we had, so that we can field those comments for people. So with that in mind, we're going to move on to the application review. Our first application review of the night is site plan and special use permit, PB 2101 107 Main Street. The applicant is Ed Carroll. So Ed, welcome.
Thank you.
And we're going to move over here. Let me just get to my file with your information in it. Okay, so with this, application. If you click on the first note from the Gmail that appears, our attorney has said this is a seeker type 2 action, subject to a referral to the Ulster County Planning Board, as the property is located on state road and does not fall within any category for exemption under the village's agreement. So that's certainly one point that we need to keep in mind. And following that, Rick, let's hear you weigh in on the application here for the first moments, please.
Okay. As you just mentioned, the board should go ahead and make a motion to classify the action as a type 2, and also a motion to refer the complete application to the Ulster County Planning Board. This is really a special use permit in addition to the site plan, and the special use permit, the board always has to be concerned about making sure that the applicant has complied with the standards in the special use permit provisions of the code, which include 212-41D and 212-40. Corey has said that the deck is accessory to the restaurant portion of the use. I think this is going to be a little bit difficult to enforce. It's not a large deck, and to isolate restaurant portion versus bar is something the planning board has to consider, but it's going to be a difficult situation. There are, like I said, various standards for the special use permit. I think the board should look at 212-40, A through E, and see whether or not there are any conditions that the board may want to impose consistent with those provisions. Corey has confirmed that the applicant's calculations for minimum lot size and rear yard setback are correct. The fence that is shown does not indicate any height. And I'm advised that it's likely less than 8 feet, but 8 feet is the maximum. But you should note on the plans the height of that fence, rather than simply that it's matching the existing size, but not providing a height measurement. There are various signage issues that will have to be conforming. And so the applicant needs to understand those. Village Code Section 212-25D10 about illumination, 212-25F7B also about illumination and exposed lighting sources, etc. So that the, and also I guess 212-25F5B about projecting signs. So the applicant, I can't recall right now. Did you have a detail on the signage?
We have an elevation of it and size and material and projection. And we, back to the fence for a sec, we do list the height of the fence at the deck, but not at the front of the building, which was going to be existing to remain, basically.
Okay. The planning board just has to confirm that in fact the signage complies with all of those. I did not check it specifically. We have to deal with a parking issue, making sure that that's clear as to where people are parking and whether or not it's restricted parking. And I think that's about it.
Okay, yeah, that kind of covers the notes that you had. So let's do this. Let's start from the top here, and let me move some things over here so I can get to it much more easily. So let's go back from to the very top. Everyone got a nice summary of it, and Rick, thank you very much for doing that. So what we need to look at then is, the first thing we need to do is to classify this as a type 2 action. Is everyone clear why it is a type 2 action?
Yes.
And someone want to explain so that our guest tonight can understand a bit more why it's a type 2? Who wants to take a crack at that?
Well, it doesn't change the footprint. They're not cutting any trees down. It's already paved. They're just changing what the building does.
Very good. Thank you. So then what we're going to look at then is motion to, I'd like to get a motion to type this as a type 2 action under seeker.
So motion.
Second.
One second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Very good. So this is going to be then typed as a type 2 action under seeker. The next thing we need to look at is we need to get a motion on the referral to the Ulster County Planning Board, given that it sits on a state road. So may I please get a motion to for the referral to the Ulster County Planning Board?
Thank you.
So motion.
And a second, please.
Second.
Okay, very good. So the motion passes. We are going to then refer that to the Ulster County Planning Board, which will be done very quickly here. So having those two immediate things completed, now we need to start looking at the issues. This is going to require a special use permit for a pre-existing non-conforming bar tavern. Applicant was relying on the pre-existing non-conforming use, but is now seeking to bring it into conformance by getting the requisite SUP, since they are expanding the restaurant portion of the building by the deck, and a pre-existing non-conforming use cannot be enlarged. So as a result, they will need a special use permit for that. Also asked for a bar SUP allowing the bar to continue to serve liquor until 4 a.m. Corey here says that the use is a bar and must meet the bar SUP standards. The restaurant, accessory, dining fall under the bar use. And then per Corey, the applicant does not require an outdoor cafe SUP. The deck is accessory to the restaurant portion of the use. And so let's kind of open that up there, guys. Any questions that we need to look at regarding that, getting that bar SUP that allows the bar to continue to serve liquor until 4 a.m.? Is there an existing law for a bar that allows a bar to serve until 4 a.m.?
Yeah.
Don't they already serve till 4 a.m. there?
Right.
Yeah. I thought that was part of the liquor laws. Rick, you want to tell us?
Yeah, it is. It's part of the liquor laws is the 4 a.m. And there is, Corey was wondering whether or not operationally you could restrict those hours because there's a special use permit. There's nothing in the code that restricts those operational uses. So this board would only be able to restrict those operational uses if it was relevant to some environmental or other impact that gave you authority to do that. There are some issues with respect to the special use permit, the general ones I talked about. But I'm not sure that, such as the distance to the neighbors, et cetera, and noise, but there's a noise ordinance that would protect the noise aspect, that you wouldn't have to reduce the operational hours for that. Right now, planning board members, I don't see any particular hook by which you'd be able to limit the operational hours based upon those special permit provisions or anything else in the code. So I think that the hours are going to simply still be dictated by the state liquor authority.
Can I just ask a question for clarification?
Sure.
The application, I think it outlined this, but so you're stating that basically the outdoor area will not be used once the restaurant portion is closed. Is
That's
that
right.
correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Okay. Let's see here, because I did have a couple of questions. So with that in mind here, then I don't see that we really have any way to weigh in on that. Most of those provisions that he's concerned about are already covered by existing laws for noise ordinance, liquor laws as well. So that really isn't something that we can weigh in on. It says per Corey, the applicant does not require an outdoor cafe or restaurant SUP. The deck is accessory to the restaurant portion of the use. You just told us that it is going to be used for the restaurant, not as part of the bar. So what we are requesting then is it says the applicant should provide a narrative demonstrating compliance with the specific standards of 212-41D for the bar SUP. Specifically, such uses shall not be located within 500 feet of schools or churches. Means of public ingress and egress shall be a minimum of 200 feet from the boundary of any residential district. How would we like to have that narrative given? Is that something we want to get in writing, Rick?
No, those are just really threshold issues with respect to this type of use. And if they don't comply with those, then they're not eligible for a special use permit. And we haven't been advised by Corey that any of these are a problem for the application.
Okay, so with that in mind, that kind of covers a lot of the special use permit issues. Let's see, we're moving on. Corey's confirmed the applicant's calculations for minimum lot size and rear yard setback are correct. I did have a question about the fence on the side. First off, a couple of questions that I have. The entrance and exit for the patio is only through the building. Is that correct?
No, there's for all practical purposes, for business purposes, correct. But for means of egress, there has to be two means of egress from the deck so that people can leave if there's an emergency. So there will be a legal means of egress per building code regulations, but it won't be used as part of the business access. So.
Okay, I was looking on the plans that you gave where you placed the plantings that you're going to be doing, and I could not see that. Is it where the ramp up is? I guess at the very back end of the deck. Is that the other point of egress and ingress?
That's right. There's a ramp up, and then there's a little stair. You can see on drawing 2.
Okay, got it. I didn't know whether that stair was part going into the building or not. Okay.
Right.
All right. Then the other question that I had was, is the deck within the required setbacks for the side yard?
Yes.
What is that distance? I don't see it noted on the plans.
It should be, but the side yard setback, is that up here in the property zoning information? Minimum side yard is 0 feet, so it's greater than 3 feet.
Okay. All right, I see it there. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. The fence height you noted on there is 8 feet, I believe.
Right, and Corey clarified that is above grade, not above the deck.
Okay. Takes off that question then. Do we have anything else that we want to ask? Anybody else have some questions?
I've got a quick question. That 8-foot fence in the back. So the deck extends at the deck is the level of the main restaurant floor. Is that right?
That's right, for accessibility.
Okay. So the adjacent property to the north, which I think is 101 Main Street, it's like a long building in the back of the parking lot.
Right, to the west, actually, but yeah.
Right to the west. Is that residential or a business?
It's had mixed use over time. I think it's residential now.
Okay.
And there's a residence on the second floor also, as of the building in question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as there are actually in some of the neighboring buildings, there's residents, mixed use.
It looked to me from the like from the parking lot angle that any extension at the restaurant level would basically be at like almost at roof level of that neighboring building.
That's a good question. I think the deck is, I think it hits kind of mid wall. I don't actually know that offhand, but I think it's more a little bit lower than roof.
Okay.
Mid wall sort of ish.
Okay.
And where would you be relocating the tanks to?
That's
propane.
TBD, but they could be.
Okay.
We have to look into some of the building code issues about those.
Okay.
In terms of clearances to the deck and stuff like that, but hopefully they'll be. Ideally, they're underground.
Okay.
Underground.
That's possible. You know, that's acceptable to Corey.
Interesting. Okay.
And now, sorry, one more question. So I see, I think it's image 4, the east elevation, you're going to replace the door with matching siding. So how do residents get into their apartments in the back here?
Currently, if you look at drawing 2, site plan proposed, you'll see on the side there's a planting area, 2 planting areas. In between the 2 planting areas are 2 doors. The first door, the one closest to the street, is the access, the ingress to the apartment upstairs, which is that stair is an existing to remain stair. So it's currently how they get up.
Are you repaving the parking lot? It looks like you're shifting the spots northward to make room for the steps. Is that right?
These spots northward.
The 3 spots that are just.
Yeah, we are, though. It's all gravel or sort of beat up asphalt now. So we wouldn't be taking away any green, any planted area.
False alarm. Can't correct any appreciated site.
I asked about the height of the deck earlier because it looks like it would completely be it would completely block the windows of that 101 Main Street.
Right.
Or
yeah. There is, I think that building is about 4 feet away from the property line.
Okay.
And again, it's funny. I am not. That issue didn't come up when we were looking at the deck. In any case, we're going to have a row of arborvitae there. So what they would be looking out at would be not the side of a deck, but greenery, which would come up from grade all the way up to 8 feet or 9 feet. So they should be looking at something pleasant green.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else have any other questions at the moment?
I got a little bit confused about, this is the one for around by Murphy's, correct, that we're talking about now?
It's currently the Murphy's restaurant.
Okay. And the memo that we got sent from the lawyer about the issues wasn't about this particular, was that about this one?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay. I was just making sure because we have that other one by McGillicuddy's. So
Right,
I just wanted to say that I noticed on there that he mentioned something about live music, and I wouldn't want to banish that. I think that it's a really important part of the community to have live music, and if you just have to attenuate the sound in some way on one or the other, that was the only thing that really bothered me.
So if I could speak to that, and I appreciate that in the live music. So it's an acoustic concept. So there'd be a piano player or there'd be an acoustic guitar. And so there's no bands. And the music is, I'll back up for a moment. Our observation is most of the bars in town cater to a younger crowd. That's understandable. It's a college town. I like that, college students. But our concept would be to cater to an older crowd, 30 plus. And so if you walk in on a given night, the piano player would be playing Elton John or Billy Joel or Carole King, or the so-called Great American Songbook, or popular show tunes, if that's not an oxymoron. And so that's what we intend to do. And as part of that, we will intend to upgrade the kitchen, and we intend to have a brunch on Sunday with the music of Sinatra. So, we're trying to give a slightly different flavor, no pun intended, to the village, and to cater to a slightly different crowd. But obviously, anyone who likes music from the decades would be more than welcome.
I just want to add something that what I was talking about earlier was to say that there really is no basis to go ahead and restrict the music or the operational hours. That what controls that would be the village code noise ordinance. So that's what's going to determine that. So if you're having, regardless of whether or not it's acoustic, amplified or not, or piano, the village code noise ordinance as to when you can have how much noise at the property line is going to control. Because also this board isn't going to get into saying, approving this project, saying you can only have a piano and a guitar, right? And so this approval will be allowed by not only you, but any subsequent user that uses it for the same purpose. That use would be continued, and they may change the choice of music. And so the board really, what I was saying earlier is that the board really has no basis to go ahead and restrict either the operational hours or other aspects such as music. But that will be covered by the code. So you have to make sure you're always in compliance with the code.
Yes.
I do have a question about the signs, because I see the elevation, but there's not a lot of detail in that elevation relative to the type of detail that's required for signage under the code. I mean, you say it's 5 feet maximum projection out, but that's just what the code says.
Right.
And the proposed sign is 4 feet, 4 inches.
Diameter.
But it's, let me see where this is.
It's less than 15 square feet per side.
Right, but it's the projecting signs may have a maximum projection of 5 feet from the building face.
Right.
And so you don't have any kind of, this isn't the signage that's going to be up there, right? You're going to put new signage up?
Well, this is what I'm showing in the photo is a photoshopped version of the proposed sign.
Oh, okay. So that is the proposed sign then?
The circular one.
Okay.
Right.
And that's 4 feet, 4 inches, it says, and it gives the side dimensions.
Right. Right.
Well, it's
And
4 feet, 4 inches, the sign itself.
Right.
But the sign looks like it's a good bit from the face of the building, and the maximum projection is the sign from the building,
Right.
not the sign itself.
Right. We have a
So there's
note.
no
on-
dimension there showing where it's going to be as far as the dimension from the building. And also there needs to be it looks like you meet it, but there needs to be a measurement as to the height of it, because it can't be any lower than 12 feet. It looks like it
Right.
is, but we need, I think it's appropriate to have a detail of the signage,
Sure.
not just, superimposed on this photo, but a detail of the signage.
Mhm.
And also with respect to the lights, the code is pretty specific, and you simply say mount sign lights under eave. But
Right.
again, in the detail, you should be indicating that it's not going to somehow, like bare incandescent light sources shall be shielded from view.
Sure.
Only white lights may be used to illuminate a sign.
Right.
Exposed lighting sources are prohibited. So, I mean, you have to have a detail that shows this board that that's what you're going to do. So there's no surprises later on.
Sure.
Now, is that rod for the sign, are you saying that the rod itself, length is 5 feet from the building, the end of the rod is? Or are you
Right.
saying that the sign is 5 feet from the building?
But basically both. So I think,
Basically both.
I take Rick's point,
Okay.
which is that we need to present an elevation that shows everything to scale with, probably a section through the building with the projection of the,
Okay,
And some details on the light itself and
yeah. Our
just to
intent
make
was,
sure.
our intent was to have the lights tucked up under the eave and have the be telescopic bullet lights so that there would be no visible glare for any of the people walking, by there. It would be a beam right on the sign. So, and all the lights would be shielded, that we're using.
Okay. Yeah, if you could just have a detailed noting all of those things.
Sure.
okay.
Did you want to talk
Now-
about parking, John?
Yeah, I do. I'm just trying to go down through this thing and follow the outline. Where do you plan to have your parking? Parking is always a difficult commodity in New Paltz. Give us a little bit to understand where you are going to have your parking at.
Well, we have a parking table, and the intent was to have the resident parking on site. There's 3 dedicated spaces for the apartment, and then to have the rest of the parking handled by off-street parking and the parking lot on the hill.
Okay, we'll need to make sure we have some details on that as well.
Yeah,
Let's see here.
we do have a location map, but sure. Would you, we outlined some of the streets that are adjacent with off-street parking, and we have a location map. Is there something in addition to that that you'd like to see specifically?
I'm not seeing the location map up there.
It's line 5 on sheet A001. Next to the plants.
This is the only time I miss in-person meetings because it's so much easier to toggle.
I know, isn't it?
I know. I'm like flipping back and forth.
I could share my screen if that's helpful.
Oh, I see
The
it.
location map on 5 there. Okay, I see it.
Right, yeah, and right next to it is the distance to the residential districts from the egress.
All right, got that. Got it. Okay, all right. All right, any further questions? Anything else that we need to cover related to this at the moment? Because our next step is that we're going to need to start the seeker process, how we're going to classify it, and then we're going to need to look at the SEAF, EAF Part 1 to be revised. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Pardon me, just a moment here. So then we're going to require, let's see, first review here. So we have classified it. We need to get that information back from you with a bit more of the detail before we move forward, and then we'll be able to set a public hearing on that. So we have typed it. We are going to make the referral. We'll get that information from you, and then once we get that information, then we'll look at setting a public hearing. Is that all good? Anything else we need to cover?
John?
Yes,
Just
sir.
as far as the timing of the public hearing,
Yes.
although you're permitted to set a public hearing prior to receiving comments from the Ulster County Planning Board, A lot of times this board has wanted to wait until receiving comments from the Ulster County Planning Board before setting the public hearing, so the public
Yes.
would have access to the planning board's comments.
Yes, I think, yeah, let's do that. Also, when would this be, when's the next Ulster County Planning Board, Alana?
So
I
it would
think
have
they
to be the
meet on
one it would have to be the one in May because they have
Right.
their one for this month tomorrow. It's the first Wednesday of every month. So it would be May 5th is when I would refer it by. And I'm assuming the items being requested tonight, you'll probably get them to me pretty soon. So I'll wait to get that stuff and then send it over to them. I think
Okay.
would be
John,
fair.
Yes,
the other thing we could do, if you wanted to, or the planning board wanted to, is that the first, let me see, the first. So you could, if you wanted to, set the public hearing for May 18th.
So I was-
which
Would that
then-
give us time, because with them having the May 5th meeting, so that should give us time, right?
yes.
Yeah, the Ulster County meets on May 5th, assuming that I imagine that their agenda isn't that packed that if it was sent up now, they couldn't get to it by their May 5th meeting. And then they would give comments shortly thereafter, and that would give more than a week before the public hearing. The other thing too is that if there's happens to be some glitch and the planning board, Ulster County Planning Board couldn't get out their comments in time, you can simply have the public hearing and adjourn it
Mhm.
and continue it
Right.
until such time as you have those comments.
Okay. I think that's a good idea. So Alana, why don't we set the public hearing then for May 18th?
You'll need a motion on that.
And yeah, okay. And then we'll look for this to go to the Ulster County Planning Board on May 5th. So what I will need then is a motion to hold a public hearing for this application on May 18th.
So motion.
And I need a second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so the public hearing is now set for May 18th. Ulster County Planning Board is going to receive this on May 5th. So hopefully we'll have information back within the next few days after that and then be able to press forward. Any further questions?
Should I speak with Alana about getting the requested material?
Yes,
Yeah, I'll email you tomorrow.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah.
she'll disseminate it to everybody here within a short time after that. Okay, very good. Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. Look forward to
Thank you. I
seeing you
appreciate
on
it.
May 18th.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So moving on to our next application review. This application review is PB 2008-64 Plains Road. Applicant is Discovery Institute. Before we get moving far into that, there was, these folks have been here visiting us before. And if you are aware of that, there was a summary that was put out. Let's see here. Let me get over here to it. So if you go to the copy of the Village of New Paltz Planning Board regular meeting of Tuesday, September 1, 2020, and you scroll down to the portion where we talk about is item number 2, the subdivision 1 lot to 2 lots, PB 2008-64 Plains Road. You'll note that we did have some interactions, and I think it's worth your time to take a look at that so that we do, so that you do have an idea of the history of things that are going on. Just to kind of summarize, and I'll ask Rick to summarize what's going on tonight. But from that meeting, the idea was to subdivide the portion. There was a subdivision that was going on. Then we're going to subdivide the portion with the house. There's a shared septic, which was an issue. We had a sketch and not the plans, and we requested that we get approved subdivision plan filed with the county. There were questions from Zach about the lot coverage, driveway, dimensions were also an issue, parking locations, number of bedrooms. Then we also looked at permeable surfaces, and this is all within in the summary of it. Alana once again did a good job on getting it all together there. Getting materials forwarded to the engineer, comments from the Department of Health and DPW, and a number of different issues. So that will give you a good primer on what went on at that time. So now we have the applicants back again. Welcome, glad that you are here. So, Rick, you want to just give us your quick summary that you had in the notes there?
Oh,
You're on mute.
Someone always has to do that during the meeting, so it might as well be me today. There's quite a number of issues that are outstanding here, and a lot of things that need clarification. And I think that the board should postpone doing anything substantive other than one issue on coordinated review under seeker until the application is more clarified. With respect to their short environmental assessment form, their description of the action states that lot 1 will be 5.71 acres. But the table on the map indicates it's supposed to be 5.25 acres. And again, on the brief description, it says lot 2 will be 0.45, and the map indicates it will be 0.48. So these things have to be clarified as to what it is. That has to be consistent so the board understands what it's looking at and what it is considering for approval. The applicant was supposed to contact the Ulster County Department of Health to determine if their approval is required for the shared septic system. I have seen nothing in the file that they've contacted the Department of Health or that there's been any resolution of that issue. So that has to be discussed tonight if they have contacted them and if the DOH approval is needed. If so, that has to be reflected in the environmental assessment form. Question 3B of the short environmental assessment form indicates that no acres will be disturbed. We need to confirm whether the parking area for lot 2 is existing and does not require any disturbance. They were asked at the last meeting to request, as required under the code, written recommendations of the village engineer and the superintendent of public works. I am not aware that we've received any such recommendations or that they've requested them. I do think that there's some issues with the way this lot is trying to be sliced up. I recommended at the prior meeting that there be consulting civil engineers so that these things can be worked out. There are some variances that may have to be had on this property. Under section 212-17C, there can't be more than one single family or one two-family dwelling on a property. The property currently has 4 detached dwellings. And after the subdivision, one of them will still contain 3 dwellings. I don't know yet whether this is a legal pre-existing nonconformity or whether a variance is needed. Corey has to weigh in on that. The applicant indicates they need an area variance for lot 1 front yard setback. Corey is going to be doing a zoning memo on this that will perhaps shed some light on some of these things. Corey believes that lot 1 requires a side yard variance for the shed adjacent to the existing home. And a side yard variance may be required for the shed on lot 2. And the map certainly should be revised to show all the setbacks, all the sheds and other structures that are close to the property lines. I just want to state one, I mean, there's some other issues here that I've identified for the board. But one of which is with respect to the bald eagle. The map note 15 identifies a utility easement lot 1 over lot 16.120. I think it should be 16.210. I think that's just a typo. Also, the utility easements need to be shown on the plan, as well as we should have review the easements and private road maintenance agreement. So that the map note 8 indicates lot 2 has such things, but we haven't seen them at all, nor has the planning board to my knowledge. The new lot line is proposed over an existing foundation and over an existing fence. Part of this is, I think, something that the board should sort of step back and look at. If we could have, if it's possible to have someone share their screen to show the proposed subdivision line on this, is that possible?
I can't because I'm taking minutes, so I need
Okay.
someone else to do it. But anyone should be able to do it.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Right.
Exactly.
Thank you, Zach.
Can everyone see that? Oh, sorry.
Yeah, so we can see the whole plot. That's good. That's good. As you can see, this is an oddly shaped lot to begin with that is proposed to be subdivided. You know, it starts at a narrow and then has odd shaped lines. There's one that goes out onto a triangle-like insert into the next lot. So you're dealing with that to begin with. But what's proposed now is to also make it an more oddly shaped lot rather. So this board has to look at not only whether or not something can qualify from an acreage point of view to be a lot that can be subdivided into some other lot. There's obviously minimum lot sizes, but even assuming that this lot 2 meets minimum lot size, this board has to decide what's good planning as to if this is a good shaped lot to have in connection and looking at all the lands around it, you know, where the locations of the homes are, whether or not the distance from the road to the homes makes sense from this, whether or not having such a narrow parcel makes sense. So I just want the board to know that they're not restricted by an applicant who says, well, I want this particular configuration for a subdivision. If the planning board doesn't believe that this configuration makes sense from a general planning perspective. So you have that general power to make sure that subdivisions that occur in a way that makes sense from a planning perspective. It's up to you whether or not this does. But certainly the lines are running through foundations. There's just a lot of issues. It's a very busy site as it is now, and now proposed to have this narrow strip subdivided off of it. So I just wanted to mention that to the board. The final thing I wanted to talk about after other planning board members weigh in is whether or not the seeker review should be coordinated or uncoordinated with the ZBA and potentially with the Department of Health, because we don't know yet whether the Department of Health approval is needed for the shared septic. That's all.
Well, I think you're gonna have to, Rick.
Say that again. I'm sorry, Dennis.
Well, yeah, if you want to share the septic, you're gonna have to get the approval from the Department of Health.
Well, that was the possibility. I would think so as well, Dennis, but we asked the applicant to go and check with the Department of Health, and I haven't heard anything about the Department of Health's response.
Well, I'll just throw out a quick one. I put up another building on 56 where I am. It's not a residential. And I used the same leach field. But since it wasn't residential, they said, no, you're okay. There's no bedrooms, so you won't have to get a septic approval. However, from Tony up at the health department, I got a letter stating that. So in the file, you're gonna have to have a comment from the Board of Health regarding any kind of septic system that you're going to any septic system that you're going to be using. So looking at this, if they're going to share it, they have to have something in that file. Corey will require it.
Thanks,
So you
Dennis.
make a very good point. Yeah, that's a really important thing.
Thank you, Dennis. So, and Zach, you can go ahead and collapse the screen. Thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. So to our applicants, I guess the question that I have is that given that these are many of the same issues that were declared in September, given the amount of time, I guess my expectation is that you would have had that punch list, which is fairly well assembled, to address these issues. And what we're going to actually require then is we're going to have to get this punch list once again for you and with all the notes that we have. And before we can actually do anything, we're going to need you to reply to those points so that we can make sure that the bare minimum of requirements has been met, and so that we can address each of those issues, including things like the Department of Health, lot sizes, area disturbances, different recommendations from the village engineer, the civil engineer, the lot lines that are going through fences and over foundations, so that we can then address this more comprehensively. Right now, we really can't do anything until we have that information. And I think it would be premature of us to actually go and do much until we do have it, because we can't we can have a thoughtful discussion based upon on the facts of that. So any thoughts from the applicants on that?
Yeah, this is Neil Collier.
Hi, Neil.
Hi, I'm the architect proxy for the project, and I did speak with the health department on this, and they indicated that they're not interested in or would not, they don't approve this type of system as such, the way that it stands. The original shared system was a replacement system, and I spoke with them back when it was originally done, and they were not. They said that they were not interested in a replacement system. They don't approve replacement systems. It is a pump system, and we did a pump system for the school next door, which was new, commercial use, and was designed according to the county health department regulations, and they came out. That was the exact same system. And I've been trying to get an attorney to come up with a shared maintenance agreement, but like our surveyor, everybody is so busy buying and selling houses. I couldn't get any attorneys to return my call. I did ask Rick if you have any examples of these shared maintenance agreements, but I guess there's not a go by. So I'll be crafting that document and have Rick do it. And respond to these other comments. I completely forgot about the town engineer and the public works reference. and apologize for that. But we wanted to get, just got this from our surveyor and wanted to get it in front of a final comment. Ask them to go to a public hearing and go to final. I don't particularly, I believe the existing lot number, revised lot 1 is a pre-existing non-conforming use. And we all have certificates of occupancy. I don't necessarily agree with my surveyor saying that the front yard variance, house number 2 behind here, but I guess I can go over that with the zoning administrator. But
Neil, your audio is going in, like, fading out. It's kind of hard to hear you.
I'm sorry, I turned away from the microphone, wherever it is here. But this is, there's no change in coverage here. The parking is existing. It's a half-acre lot that we want to subdivide so that we can sell that parcel. And, as we go back on the tax base and raise funds for the Institute. But if there's any other questions, that's why I'm here.
I'd just like to add, my name is Ed Kramer. I was at the last meeting. I'm the president of the board of Discovery Institute. Neil Michael has been generally in charge of overseeing this procedure. Years ago, we had tried to do it and sort of came up against the same issues. This time we're trying to approach it in a more systematic way. So I'll speak with Neil and see if we can address all the concerns that you had on the punch list so that we can, excuse me, come back to you a little more prepared to answer some of the questions you might have. But I thank you for your time, and as soon as we can, we'll come back with a more complete list of things that you wanted to know.
Right.
Unless there are some specific questions you'd like to ask me in a general way, I could answer.
No, I think what we need to do before we move forward, because again, we don't want to get too far along the trail until we have this information. I think that if we can get this list of items once again created, I believe our attorney can provide that to you so that you have an outline of the exact items that need to be answered. Yes, so that we can move forward. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise it's just it probably wouldn't, it just wouldn't be worth your time to sit here and go through that until we have those done. Rick, do you have any comments? You want to tell them how we want to get that information to them?
What I can do is I can compile sort of a bullet point list of what needs to be done, what needs to be clarified. And I can send that to Alana, and Alana can send it on to the applicant. And I'll obviously copy the planning board members on that.
That's great. So I think understanding that, then we just need to determine then whether the seeker is going to be an uncoordinated review or a coordinated review. I believe the recommendation is for us to have an uncoordinated review so that we don't, so we can get all of this tidied up. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the reason that I'm suggesting to the board, obviously it's the board's decision, but the reason that I'm suggesting an uncoordinated review between the planning board and the ZBA, because it looks like at least some variances are going to be needed, is that if the variances are denied or the variances are only granted with conditions that significantly affect the layout of the lot, it doesn't make sense for this planning board to go through the seeker for the whole application, because seeker has to be completed before there's a public hearing when we when it involves a subdivision. So we have to go through seeker first. But if you go through all the seeker and let's say you say this looks fine, subject to the variances, then it goes to the ZBA. The ZBA says, no, we're not going to grant that variance, or going to grant that variance with a condition that you expand the lot in a certain fashion. Then the planning board has to re-review it again. It seems to me that it would make more sense, once we have clarification on this application, is for the applicant to go to the ZBA, try to get the variances it wants in order to have this plan approved. And if they get those variances, or get a modified version of them, then the planning board can look at it with those variances already approved by the ZBA.
Okay. So then the plan is that we're going to have this, we're going to make a decision here as to whether we're going to have an uncoordinated or coordinated review. The recommendation is that we have an uncoordinated review for the reasons that were recently stated. So I'd like a motion then to approve a seeker review unless there's discussion. First off, is there any discussion among the board members about which is preferable, uncoordinated review, which would not require us to perhaps look at these things twice, or a coordinated review? Okay.
Yeah.
The counties
I think it makes sense
view
to
the
do
separate.
coordinated review.
I'm sorry. Zach, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I think it makes sense to do the uncoordinated review as Rick stated.
Okay. Rachel, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. No, I was just gonna say that, the other agencies we would have to coordinate with, I mean, the county's gonna look at the septic and decide if that's okay, right?
Correct.
So we would have to get that, before proceeding anyhow, right? Or no, would that come later on?
It could come later on. What I'm suggesting is, in one of the things I'll be asking for, Rachel, is for that letter from the Department of Health to see whether or not their approval is required. If they produce a letter from the Department of Health that says that their Department of Health does not need to review this, then we can proceed without involving the Department of Health. If the Department of Health says, no, we're going to be reviewing it, they can review it and the planning board can wait for it. The planning board wouldn't be doing seeker with respect to that design. Any seeker that would have to be done as to the design of the septic would be done by the Department of Health. So I don't think that it would adversely affect your sort of, holistic view of this application and its environmental impacts.
Okay, any other questions?
Could I say one more thing?
Certainly.
I'm not sure if you have been given a sort of an overview. I know that Neil Michael alluded to the fact that we're doing this in order to be able to sell off the house that's on that proposed subdivision, so that we can receive funds that we can use to pay an outstanding settlement that we have to come to with a person who had previously lived on the property. So I just wanted to know that it isn't just sort of an idea we had for no particular reason. I just wanted to give you an overview of the reasons why we're doing it.
Thank you. We certainly appreciate that. So what we're going to do now is I need a motion then for us to move forward on an uncoordinated review of seeker.
No motions.
And a second on that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we will be doing an uncoordinated review of seeker here moving forward. And then we will begin that seeker review. After we get this information, our attorney will provide a bullet point that will go to Alana, as he said, who will then get it out to you. And once you get working on that, please, let's get back with Alana, see when we can get you back on the schedule and agenda so that we can move forward on this. But right now, I think that we're at a point where we can't move forward until we get the answers from you at the Discovery Institute.
Okay.
Very
Thank
good.
you.
So thank you for your time. We do appreciate it. And we do look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Alana, are there any other public comments that have come in during this period of time?
No, I do not see any.
Okay. So given that, that kind of covers our agenda for the evening. I would invite you to go back and look at that packet on the Discovery Institute and look at the summary that Alana had on it from back in 2020. I think it will give you a good general overview as well as some points that are involved there. Our attorney is going to be getting some information to Alana, and then we can look at that, and all of those things will need to be satisfied before we can move forward on it and approve the application. And this is an application that's going to be rather complex, so that we do need to pay attention to that. So with all of that in mind, Rick, any parting notes for us?
None whatsoever.
Very good. Okay, so the next thing I need is a motion to adjourn.
So motion.
Second on that? And Raquel seconds. And do we have, so we've got the motion, we've got the second, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Very good. So we are now adjourned. Thank you all very much for taking the time out of your schedules to do this. I know it's volunteer and it does get to be lengthy at some time, but I think we were able to clear away things and set the stage for some success here. We are going to be having our Moriello's New Paltz apartments that will be coming up probably very soon. So make sure that you have looked at the information there because given that we're going to have several things at once and of a complex nature, we could become quite overwhelmed if we aren't up and on our game. So anyway, enough of the lecture. Thank you all very much for your time, and we'll see you next.
Have a good night.
Oh, good night.
Good night.
Thank
At
you.
all.
Good night, guys.
Bye.